Alright, this is Paige and this is
John the Big Man.
okay, we're going to play some not Warhammer man. This is Kings of War. I'm playing my new Abyssal army and you're playing your
Nightstalkers.
very beautifully painted army. Almost fully painted. I tried to push him to get it painted before we start recording.
You know, the power of shame just keeps adding up, never ends.
Hello there! I like to watch battle reports to get better at games. So I started making short, summarized battle reports that focus on learning points. So welcome to my channel, Newbie Dice. Do like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon if you enjoy my videos. Do consider speeding up this video with the YouTube settings to consume this content or other YouTube content in a fraction of the time. Today we're going to have a battle report between my new Abyssal army versus John's Nightstalker army, and this game was actually played 3 months ago, but only now did I have the time to come.
That long ago? Oh my god.
Yes, three months ago, and only now did I have the chance to do the battle report on it. And initially I wanted to record it as a live battle report, but there was another table of players playing that day at the game store, so the background noise was too much lah. So now I came up with this idea that we can just talk over the game together over Zoom, and I'll have it all recorded. Of course, there's some footage of the game as well. So let's get to it. Okay, so I'll introduce my list first, Forces of the Abyss list. I find Abyss lists very hard to build. If we try to go shooting route, they're not the best shooting in the meta right now. If we try to go healing and regen, also not the best, right? The Abyssal Warlock is great value at 90 points, but when you buy Drain Life, it costs another 30, so it starts to get very expensive. In the end, I settled with this build where it's just lots of hammer and lots of units. So there's 3 Morlocks, 2 Horsemen, one of them with Brew of Sharpness even, so quite killy, Strider Boots, Bale, which is like a mini dragon, and tons of chaff and support pieces.
Caused me a lot of issues.
Yes.
That guy, oh my goodness.
Well, if he doesn't get killed off, right, he really comes back with a vengeance because he has healing, regeneration 5. I think through the course of game, he regenerated all his health back. 14 units, not a lot, but all of them are scoring units. And so that's why there's a total of 26 unit strength. So let's move on to John's list. Maybe you'd like to go through the list yourself, John?
I was trying to test out something that was a little bit more like control-y style. There's a little bit of everything. There's mobility, there's magic and shooting, there's hard hitters, and there's a bit of monsters. The thing that I was really trying to test out more than anything else were the soul players. Didn't have a lot of success with them initially, but I think they really kind of proved their worth. Creating like a zone where you don't feel comfortable directly taking them on without like some additional support.
Yeah.
They're less scary than what they appear, but I think you still have this like psychological effect because of their very high speed and their thunderous charge.
And number of attacks, 12 attacks. Usually, units with this profile, they have 9 attacks. But for soul players, they have 12 attacks, and they have Wind Blast 5 thrown in for free, basically. It's like, here, have some Wind Blast as well.
It is like a Swiss Army knife kind of unit. They suffer from some weaknesses, of course, but then hitting on trees and TC with the ability to buff them again, and the Wind Blast just kind of like sweetens the deal. So for me, it was more like trying to control the board more than trying to like outright win with melee mash. That's what I was testing.
One thing that I did notice was there's not a lot of traditional hammer units. You have the butchers with sharpness, of course, and then you have fiends. And even fiends, they're only crushing 1 actually. You do have 2 horrors with both having Bane Chant, and one of it with Boomstick, one of it with Conjurer's stuff. So do you feel that you have a shortage of hammers?
Actually, I think generally it's fine. I think as you see the game progresses, I didn't really have issues with taking out like a good majority. I mean, there are some things that's just exceedingly tough, right? Like your bill and all that. But generally, I feel that Nightstalkers in general don't have problems taking out units. I think they have problems with surviving, and they have problems with getting the first hit in. The mobility and the control and the zoning was something that I wanted to test, and I had to give up something, right? I have to give up, the slower heavy hitters. So that's what I was trying to accomplish with this list.
Yeah, and still there's 15 units and 21 unit strength, not too bad. You do have 1 extra drop above me, but you do also have 2 individuals in the horrors. In terms of number of scoring units, I have more.
There's a lot of trash in the scarecrows, so that's I think that's like where a lot of the scoring also comes from.
Yeah, that's why Adam Ballard's the Masters list for 2022, he has 4 hordes of Scarecrows, which is cheesing it to the max.
And I was just like, man, I need to test this out. You can't kill me, you're dead.
So I think the next few slides are the pictures of our armies, and one of the reasons I asked John to do this battle report with me is because he has a very beautifully painted Nightstalkers army, and there it is on the screen. Everything's painted except these two mind screechers over there.
At the back, yeah.
Yes, and it's in very psychedelic colors. Is it the first time you're using such a psychedelic palette?
Not precisely. For the Warlord Grimkin army, I was attempting this look, but with multi-basing, right, you can do so much more by painting the actual base itself, and there's a lot more that you can play with.
More space.
So I think this one definitely achieved more of the effect that I wanted, as opposed to when I did my Grimkin stuff, where mainly you can only paint the miniatures and the base is very limited.
So there are some Grimkin models here as well, mixed with Mantic models. And what's to highlight about John's basing is that the ground is halfway between psychedelic and normal ground. So they are sort of stepping out of the nightmare realm into the normal realm.
Like
so
traversing between realms also. I mean, that's the effect I wanted to go with. Some people thought that it's underwater or whatever.
So it's between realms.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. So I can see that. So maybe you want to add like some force field, something 3D that there are.
Too much work, Paige. Oh my god. It's already quite difficult to set up.
Okay.
Like how I'm supposed to paint all this. My pile of shame is the height of a small child now, and there's like no way that I'm ever getting through it, and I'm not going to add any more stuff that unless I'm going for like some painting competition, which I have not done, but maybe eventually someday. Who knows?
Well, let's take a closer look at some of these pictures. You can see the fiends. This is the picture I used for the cover, because you can see the close-up of the fiends. Here's the other side, and you can see, I think there's a solo picture of the Shadowhawk, but this is the line where it's like transiting between realms. This is a beholder, right, that you are using as plan apparition.
It's the D&D beholder.
D&D beholder. The Grimkin heroes, the Moon Lady, and the King of Nothing, right? Dreamer.
The Dreamer and the King of Nothing. Yeah.
Okay. Butchers, Flesh Reapers, Scarecrows from the Grimkin Scarecrows as well.
The Grimkin stuff as well, yeah. One of the Reaper, the bigger one, is actually one of the, I think what is it called, the Frightmare. The Soul Flayers is also a D&D model.
Mind Screechers from Mantic, and now is my army. So this is my Persian Abyssal army. So nice pet project that I have going on for a while, and it was in my head for a while before I materialized it. So this the units what's you can see from the get-go are turbans. So
yes. Yeah, very 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 nice penta. Okay,
so I have the lower abyssals, which I painted in the style of the 300 Immortals. So they do have a face, right? They do have a demonic face, but instead I painted the face silver to make it look like the demonic mask from 300. I have a small picture over at the corner. The turban is made from plumber's tape. So it's this silicone or rubbery tape that you wrap around pipes to tighten before you screw the pipes together so it doesn't leak. So I just wrap it in circles around the horns, and the tape sort of sticks to itself, so I just keep wrapping around, and then I just dab a drop of super glue at the end to hold the end piece together. So that's how it's done. So I use this turquoise teal color. I always have a soft spot for this color, the turquoise teal looking color.
It definitely like puts it all together. You know, there's a lot of browns, and the turquoise really just makes them pop up so much more.
Yeah, and this desert basing, right, is always very difficult because it tends to look very bland. It's just sand, right? So I put some dry grass tufts and some marbles and some small little stones. And I'm now at the warlocks. So I did a head swap for one of the warlocks, so I don't want them to look the same. So I swapped one head for lower abyssal. For my tortured souls, this definitely didn't come out as I had imagined in my head. I thought it would look nicer, but still pretty proud of the idea that I came up with. So I got some 3D printed genie lamps, which I then casted with blue stuff. Then I made multiple genie lamps, and then for the tortured souls, they are actually the top half of the ghoul body. So this army is fully Mantic. So the top half is ghoul body, the bottom half, the trail is just green stuff. Okay, and then for my Zazuzu, I used the Despoiler, and I put the Vanguard frame bearer, usually floating in the air, but I put him mounted on the back of the Despoiler, and he's doing a lightning. It's a fireball, right? But I put some paper clips in it to make lightning bolts. So I have my Molochs over here, 3 units of them, and I thought after I wrapped the turban, they look like the big guards from Aladdin the movie, the cartoon movie. Also, the models come with many weapon options. So instead of mixing the weapon options in every unit, I thought I'll just make them more thematic. So this one is the one that are all holding 2 weapons, and then I have the one that they're all holding trident, and I use the standard barrel, which is the guy holding the torch. And the last one is the one holding 2-handed axes. The middle guy is the one holding the horn. Something about Morlock is also that they're 150 by 100 mm base, so the base size is very big, but actually the model is not very big because these are the older Mantic large infantry models who tend to be very small. So I had to do a cliff around it to fill up the space, so those don't make it look very sparse. So I put a cliff on each of their bases. And the next one is the Soul Flayers. I used the Soul Flayers to make Abyssal Horsemen because I really dislike the Abyssal Horsemen models. I think they look very bad. The Soul Flayers look very good, but unfortunately they're quite expensive. So I have 2 units of Abyssal Horsemen, right? That means I need to buy 2 boxes of Soul Flayers each, so 4 boxes in total. I put the trigger on 2 boxes, and then I haven't bought the other 2 boxes because I'm feeling the pain. I shall buy the other 2 boxes when I feel like, I've got money to spare this month. Maybe I'll burn it on the Soul Flayers. But we'll see, alright. I only have 1 unit done right now.
My wife know about the price. Yeah.
Yeah, and gargoyles, I made them look like marble, but I was a bit too lazy to do the marble effect well. So if you look closely, there's some tinges of brown and greens. It looks better in person, but on the photo it kind of looks a little bit whitewashed. And lastly, my build, I have modeled him to look like Jafar. So I looked at how his turban is shaped like, and I modeled it the same way. I made a base out of green stuff, and I wrapped plumber's tape around it. And they all come with a gem. So the gem is actually from nail art. I bought my wife a nail art kit very long ago when we were dating. So I say, do you have the nail art kit still? Then I say, yeah. So I picked out the crystals.
How convenient.
They are just the right size. So
got a little bit of the object source lighting.
For the build, I did object source lighting. I don't use a airbrush. For OSL, I use a dry brush technique, which I found actually quite easy, because when you do dry brush, as you brush, right, the tinge slowly gets stronger, so you can just stop brushing when you felt that you have achieved the right tinge. So it has that pseudo airbrush effect where it gradients out. So yeah, I found it not difficult to do using a dry brush technique. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to the game, but first, shout out to our game store. If you're from the Asia Pacific region, do consider checking out Hammer House website for your hobby needs. They carry a wide range of miniatures and hobby supplies, including Mantic, Vallejo, Scale 75, and Green Stuff World products.
So we're playing Invade. We just randomly wrote a map from Giant Dwarf, and also the scenario is Invade. So any pre-game thoughts?
Pre-game thoughts. This is a tough army. My first time facing a Abyssal as well. I'm not very certain how I'm going to deal with it, but all I focused on for the time was your big monster character, which I wanted to make sure that I can corner him off and make sure that he doesn't get free reign around the battlefield. The number of drops that I had contributed to that. The rest of the army, I will just deal with it as it comes. I'm not very certain like how it will pan out on the battlefield. Yeah.
Okay, so for myself, he outdropped me and I won the deployment roll. That means I started to deploy first, so he had 2 drops above my last deployment. So he managed to see where Bill went, which was my final drop. For me, there are 3 big hitters in his army, which is the Butchers, the Fiends, and the Shadowhawk. So the Fiends also went close to last, so the Fiends, yeah, so I didn't see where they could go. I think there'll be a huge slot on my right, his left, whereas my left is a bit empty. Hopefully I get more unit strength on that side. Okay, so we'll see how it goes. Ding.
So this is the deployment. So as what the video has alluded to, my last drop was the build. So I kind of deployed a little bit balanced on both sides, and then the build sort of reviewed my plans to focus a little bit on the right, and so that also caused him to drop his Fiends. One of his last drop was the Fiends. I don't know if there were other, maybe the Dread Fiend was also one of the last, I'm not sure. But he also deployed heavily on the right to sort of match up against me. Okay, in terms of the map, there's 2 big blocking terrains in the middle of the map. I'm going to draw it on screen. One is that castle piece somewhere in the middle top, and one is the rock piece somewhere around the middle bottom. Okay, so there's this corridor that we are fighting through, and then as well as there's this big forest piece over here, right? So this is a weird corridor space and we are playing invade. So these two terrains sort of split our map into like this diagonal half, right?
Especially that big castle thing, like the impossible. That one, for me, being deployed on that side. I think you chose the deployment.
Yeah.
Like,
so it hinders
really
your advance, right?
Yeah, it makes it very difficult, especially for the scarecrows. I wasn't really certain where I'm going to place them, but at the same time, I'm also like, I mean, I'm hoping they will make some impact, but if at the end of the day they need to be sacrificed, then just at least hold down one side of the map or hold down the center for a sufficient amount of time so that other units can be brought to bear. So yeah, my side of the deployment definitely made my life a little bit difficult, but I think on your side, where Bill is, I think that hill also made life a bit difficult for you because you can't precisely fly over it. There are things hidden behind that can charge you if you make a mistake. So I think it kind of like balances out. Like my center is very rough and your Bill side is a little bit more difficult.
My Bill is height 4, you can see over the hill, but the horseman couldn't. Of course, yeah. I'm not sure if the Fiends were height 4, maybe they were.
Fiends were height 4, yeah.
Yeah, but we are same threat range. And of course, you are heavier deployed on the right side, so I'm not going to dive in, right? My plan was actually to hide behind the little obstacle on the side and hold out as long as I can, while the remaining side of my battlefield wins, because my force is split on the right side of the rock and the left side of the rock, right? So I have more space and more forces on the left side of the rock. Also, that means it's also towards the left half of your force, which is very little on the left side of the castle. In terms of my hammers, I have 2 hammers on the, let me erase the screen. I have 2 hammers on the right side of the rock, the horseman, the Morlocks, 1 unit of Morlocks, and of course Bale on that side. On the left side, I got much more, right? I got 2 units of Morlocks as well as the horseman on the extreme flank. The most central unit of Morlocks, I was actually hoping that it would charge towards your Scarecrow Horde, so to be on that side of the castle. But things didn't develop that way lah. Just spoilers ahead, right? So for your side on the left, you did have the Soul Flayers and Phantoms with that speed 10 threat to sort of keep me at bay, which was semi-successful, I'd say. So kudos to your deployment over there. So let's look at our initiative roll, and you have the big blue dice rolling 6. You won the initiative, but let me go first. So I would like to ask you why, because in Invade most of the times players who won the initiative would like to go first because your goal is to get to the opponent half, right? So let me know what's your thoughts. How come you let me go first?
So, okay, to be honest, I wasn't very familiar with all of the scenarios. I think this is maybe my between 15th to 20th Kings of War game ever in my lifetime. I mean, I had experience with other games, other rank and flank games. This scenario, I think, was relatively new to me. I am not very familiar with it. I wasn't thinking about that at all, to be honest. I wasn't thinking about the scenario. I was just thinking about the mobility of your army and so-called versus the mobility of mine. I think I was just too obsessed with Bill. I knew that either side of my army, like the both flanks, are just a little bit slower than yours. Like, okay, on the Bill side, I'm slower because Bill is speed 10. And then on the other side, which is where your horseman with the Brew of Sharpness, is a bit heavier. There's more stuff there. Kind of my flanks are, one side is like overpowered, but then it's slow, but the other side is like completely weak. Yeah, it can't handle everything. My thinking was just, okay, there's no easy way for me to get across to the other side. There's just no way. So knowing where you deploy, knowing where your first turn will be, will allow me to kind of, to the best of my ability, shift things around if need be.
I see.
So the original plan was for the Fiend to quickly mop up the Bale side and then quickly turn to the middle. That was the initial plan. Like, just have all my firepower, just bum rush down that lane, the Soul Flayer side, which is on the other side with your horseman with the Brew of Sharpness. Delay. Just delay. Let's do whatever is needed for me to just, pull you off. Don't commit to anything. And then hopefully things can turn in the middle, and then now the pressure is on you to turn back in the middle, and then we just slob in all that. So that was my idea. Didn't really work out that way, but we'll see.
It's funny how you said that, right? Because actually what you said is exactly the scenario I face as well. So I have the faster side with less forces, and then the stronger side that's slower. So it's the same, it's mirrored. You have the stronger side that's slower and the faster side with less forces.
Exactly, yeah.
John's no slouch. He might not have played a lot of Kings of War game, but he is a Warhammer fantasy veteran. He's the one that coached all the young fantasy players, including myself, into the game.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, and
then
I'm bringing you on.
And then when went to Warmer Hearts, I actually was the one that got him into Warmer Hearts, and he became more hardcore than me. Then by then I already left for Kings of War, and now that Warmer Hearts is not going in a good direction, he has also came over to Kings of War. He's a very good player, just that he hasn't been having a lot of chances to play. But in fact, later we're gonna get a game in. Yeah.
Hopefully, get myself more practice, and then I will not make this mistake of letting you move first. I mean, now that you mention it, I definitely should have moved first, and maybe just be a bit more cautious in my approach, rather than letting you having like something just zoom past everything, right? So I mean, hindsight is 20/20, but hopefully more practice will allow me to avoid making such mistakes in the future.
John's, your deployment is also pretty near perfect, right? You have phantoms on both sides to prevent anything from flying into areas that you don't want to, and all your fast elements are on the side and your tough elements are in the middle, so there's no problem in your deployment there, and no openings that I can take advantage of. So yeah, John is he's a very precise gamer. He checks all your threat angles and say, okay, I'm covering all your landing zones. You're not gonna get me anywhere.
I just need to do it faster now, so I can make it in time for the games.
Yeah, no problem. And yeah, I think that day I also said, hey, this is Invade. Are you sure you're gonna let me go first? And then you gave it a second thought, but you still said, yeah, you go first. So I'm not taking advantage of John and his unfamiliarity with the scenario. But let's see. Okay, so on the left side, so same thing. My stronger side, I want to quickly punch through, right, so that I can swing around to the center. So I push my gargoyles up aggressively and moved my Abyssal Horsemen onto the hill to threaten, right, to get into a commanding position, because John on his left, on the screen's left, he has that forest that he can play hide and seek with, right? He can just pull his phantoms behind the forest, and then it might be a long dance back and forth trying to get line of sight. So I just wanted to push as far as I could with the horsemen on the hill. I think I moved more than 8, so I can only move straight. If not, I would have swung more towards the center. Then I push my Molochs up, the one that is stuck behind the terrain or went into the water. And the right side, I was playing KG, so my Abyssal Horseman actually sidestepped behind the obstacle, so that one thing is cover, the other thing is if you ever get me, I'll be hindered. If I want to charge out, I do have Boots of Striding, and also I have the Tortured Souls right behind there to prevent any blind spots that you might take advantage of. So that's my top 1. I think nothing much to say there. So bottom of 1. So from left to right, your phantoms went in. You, instead of backing up, you went in.
Yeah.
Do you remember why you want to do that?
Your chest will be more impactful than my chest. That's my idea. So you have a lot more hammers. Now your horsemen are also kind of like stuck. Your horseman has to engage with the phantoms in the subsequent round, and then you just be kind of like stuck on the hill, which was what I wanted to begin with. Of course, I didn't want to sacrifice a phantom to do that, to accomplish that. But in my mind, taking out the gargoyles and putting the horsemen in their place kind of like serve a dual purpose.
So the rest of the things shuffled up, nothing much there. One thing I forgot to say, at the top of 1, I actually did some lightning bolt damage from Zazuzu onto your soul flayers. I used the gargoyles as a sacrificial unit. That's why you can see 3 wounds on these gargoyles that I held so far back. But Planar Apparition, right? Heal 6, heal 7?
Yeah, heal 7.
Heal 7, healed it all off. So like,
healed it all off. It was... The Planar Apparition, right, has more of a demoralizing effect than any like, real significant impact. I mean, in my opinion.
I think it's great because you can always heal off the chip damage people do with shooting. So unless people bring heavy shooting, right, it's not gonna matter with your Planar Apparition healing all off. Next, we're gonna go into some B-roll shots of our army. So Top of 2, what I didn't capture was that when your phantoms charged and killed the gargoyles, it overran forward. So if you notice that my Abyssal Horseman killed the phantoms, but is still on top of the, very much on top of the hill because of that. Okay, so in the middle, you'll notice that the middle Morlocks went to the left of the castle. You placed your Scarecrow regiment within charge range of that unit of Morlocks. The other unit of Morlocks, because it didn't move at the double.
By accident as well, right? I remember why. I was hoping that the Soul Flayers would do the Wind Blast and I just needed 2 inches.
Oh, you failed it by 1, yes.
Yeah, I failed by 1. So
now I remember.
That was a bit of a blunder on my end.
Yeah, you needed 2 success, you only got 1 to blow it out of range. Yes.
It was a bit painful, but you know, it was a mistake that I tried to rectify with the Soul Players. Then the Soul Players also failed me, so yeah, it was just a mistake that I deserved to be punished for.
So with that, right, one of my hammer pieces that I wanted on the right actually went leftwards. So if you notice, they're all on the left side of the castle, whereas you only have like 1 Soul Player on that side. Okay.
Yep.
I pushed the the middle regiment of ghouls up. I think is within threat range of your scarecrows if they roll all charge 3.
Yeah.
I think they. I'm not sure if they could fit. I think they could because you ended up charging it. They could fit in front of the castle. What I didn't realize was I moved it within flank charge of your Soul Flayer. So that's total mistake on my end.
That was the mistake that you made. I didn't realize it as well until it was my turn. When I started to look at all the angles, then I realized, hey, this looks juicy. That's it's a juicy little target for my Soul Players, and it gets me out of that pinch, right? Like now, the entire left side of the screen is just dominated by you, and my poor Soul Players can't do anything meaningful just by charging to the front. And then there's this little opportunity that presented itself where I can charge you in the flank almost consequence free.
So for myself, for my right side, I'm like, oh, let's just hold this place as long as I can. So my Morlocks only inch forward a little bit, because it wants to stay out of threat range of your Shadowhawk. Shadowhawk are speed 6, so I think they are same threat range as the Morlock, so I can't charge you, you can't charge me, we'll just do a Mexican standoff.
Stare each other.
Stare each other. So bottom of 2, this is the movement phase where your Soul Flayers did indeed charge the flank of ghouls, and with the Scarecrows going in first, so with the Scarecrows going in, sliding as much as it could, the Soul Flayers charged in and pushed downwards even more, and that is out of the front arc of my back unit of Morlocks. So right now, the only thing that could see it, thankfully, is the gargoyle troop that's in the water, because I kept it so far back to abuse it for lightning bolts, so at least gargoyles could charge it, right? On the right side, you push everything forward. One thing to note is the Reapers towing into the forest, well, I think still out of 12 inch of the Morlock, because the Morlock was trying to stay out of threat range of the Shadowhawk, so that allowed your Reapers to tow in. Another thing is you found, was it a blind spot that you put the Dreadfin at? No, it's not exactly a blind spot. Okay, it's within charge of 2 of the units, which is my Tortured Souls and Bale. Of course, if I were to charge it, that means your Fiends are able to charge. You have Fiends and Phantoms, and then you can bring your Shadowhawk to follow up. So I guess that was your plan.
I think it was out of your front arc of the Horseman as well.
Out of front arc of the Horseman for sure, because the Horseman
it presented you with a conundrum, right? It's like you can't fly over, the Bale can't fly over the Drapings. They can't land anywhere meaningful on the opposite side of the hill.
Yeah,
and,
can't land.
At the same time, you can't just let this Drapefin have free reign. It was a bit of a sacrifice play on my end. The Drapefin, while I love it a lot, and I think it's actually a really fantastic model. The fact of the matter is I needed the other high mobility models to trap your Bale, and I had to offer up something. If not, this entire flank is just going to be a staring contest, right? And then you're going to mop up the middle pretty soon. So the idea here was, okay, I'm going to try and force you to engage, mop up the right side, quickly turn into the middle for the kind of like the later stages of the game.
One question though, why didn't you offer up the Phantoms instead?
So the Phantoms at speed 10 was extremely important, and of course the Nimble, to really cage your Bale. You can always move, you can always fly 20 into a bad position where you can't charge anything. It allows you subsequently the following turns for you to cover and whatever. So the Fiends themselves, right, chasing after Bale on their own, the best they can do is just turn, and then after that Bale will just fly over them again. So in order to catch a flying unit, you have to have
2.
Basically, you need to have 2. But one of them will be like a cheaper kind of like throwaway model that is either just as mobile, just as fast, or preferably both. So the Phantoms was extremely important. I just you know, if I catch you and I do 1 damage, that's it, right? Your Bale is dead. It can be dead in the water if I position myself carefully. The Phantoms were more valuable. Once I catch Bale, I will also need something to block off your counterpunch from your Horsemen or from the Morlocks if you reposition them. So the Fiends in this case as well will be extremely useful for me to block off your counterpunch, and it's just another chaff that can block your way. The Dread Fiend was deemed the sacrificial pawn, unfortunately for the poor guy, but such is life on the battlefield.
It's not a poor guy, man, because what's gonna happen next, of course, this is the end of turn. You killed the ghouls and then you turn around. So on the top of my turn,
Scarecrows can't do anything either. Yeah.
Going from left to right. Okay, so let me rewind first. When I killed off the Phantoms of the left side on the hill with the Abyssal Horseman, I already aligned it such a way that it can move at the double 16 inches, because I already felt that probably the only way this unit is coming back into combat is to make this big roundabout around the castle. So I already deployed it in a way, reformed it in a way that it can move 16. And that's exactly what I did on the top of 3. It moves 16 all the way up to just behind the castle, or rather just on the top left of the castle. Gargoyles from the water charged Soul Flayers. I think I Bane chanted them for a good measure to make sure that I dealt a single wound, and I think that is a die showing a single wound on your Soul Flayers.
Yes, correct. Yeah. it was infuriating. Oh my goodness.
And then I think I did max Bane chant on Zazuzu, which would be Bane chant 5, I think, to make sure that I get the Bane chant off. I use the gargoyles itself as a sacrificial unit anyway, so because they're gonna die anyway. Scarecrows will sort of sandwich between the castle and Soul Flayers. It sort of couldn't reform properly, and it got flank charged by the Morlocks. Though hindered, but I think 36 attacks on force would be 18 hits. Vicious, probably 18 wounds, and brutal, probably take it off. But then I'll be facing off against Butchers and Reapers, though of course I can reform in a way to take them in the forest, but also not a good chance of survival. I think even the Shadow Hawk was probably within range at this point. On the right side, I double charged expectedly my Bale and Tortured Souls into the Dread Fiend. Okay, and I think probably I scorched earth the Fiends from this guy over here. I did one wound to I did some wounds to the Soul Flayer, so this is the end of turn shot. So that means the one wound was previously from Lightning Bolt. Okay, over on the right side, Disaster, I did not even waver or route the Dread Fiend. 62.6% chance to at least get a waver, and I did not get it. 9 attacks and 7 attacks, crushing 2, 1 hitting on 4, 1 hitting on 3s with Vicious and Brutal. But I didn't get it, so that kind of sucked. In the middle, the Scarecrow's Horde was dead, and my Morlocks was getting ready to be charged. The other 2 Morlocks though, one has actually crossed past the center line. The center line is just somewhere just in front of the castle, somewhere around here. So my Morlocks cross the center line and it's facing backwards. But I'm very wary because if I charge back, then I have to make it past the center line again. That was one consideration I have. So I have lined up, I charged Gargoyles, and I've lined up the Morlocks to follow up. But of course, your hammer units here, and the Reaper is a mini hammer, mini blender, glass cannon unit, right? There's a lot of forces there on the right side of the screen. Let's see, bottom of 3, you charge back, double charge the Morlocks in the middle. Shadowhawk start turning to the right side of the screen. Your Dread Fiend countercharge the Tortured Souls, sliding to the middle, and then the Fiends charge Bale. The Phantoms flew to land in front of the Abyssal Horseman, keeping that, you flew as close as you can, keeping that 1 inch distance from it. I think I could still charge the Shadowhawk still because of the angling, but I end up not taking that.
Yeah, I think that would have been bad news for you. I think keeping the Horseman there was probably a good idea.
Yeah. End of turn phase. Yep, you killed off the Morlocks with the double charge. Mind Screech landed in front of the Butchers. You want to shoot at it without cover,
yeah,
right?
Correct.
So you have to fly over all the units so that you shot at this unit of ghouls. They do have only 10-12 nerf, but defense 4. And then I think this other Spine Screech shot at the Warlock. You wavered the Warlock, I think, because that's that red thing over there. And then the ghouls did not get wavered because you need 8 just to waver. Right of the screen, that 2% route chance of the Tortured Souls, and you got it because that Dreadfiend only has 5 attacks, right? My nerf is dash 14. So even if you wounded with all 5 and then with Dread 6, you still need 8 twice, and that's if you wounded with all 5 attacks.
Which
so
I don't think I did, right?
I think you did. I think you did.
Did I do all 5 damage?
Or maybe you didn't, but you rolled very high on the nerf twice.
Yeah,
and
I remember just routing it and then...
I was like, what the heck? I didn't route you. I didn't waver you, and now you have routed me. And I knew that it spelled doom for my Abyssal Horseman because it's now staring at the flank of my Abyssal Horseman. That is quite sad. Quite sad indeed. So let's see how I reacted. What I did, top of all, I said, oh, let me do something really smart. I charged my Zazuzu into your Mind Screech. So my idea was like, okay, I charged my Zazuzu into your Mind Screech. That is probably going to block your butchers from charging. Okay, and then I charged my Molochs into the Soul Flayers, and I charged my Warlock in for good measure as well. The other Moloch that has already passed the halfway point is just staring backwards. I debated very long on whether to charge the Shadowhawk, because if I charge the Shadowhawk, the Dreadfiend is not looking at the Abyssal Horseman, right? But I felt that okay, if I charge the Shadowhawk, it will still eventually die to the Shadowhawk, I think. Because the Shadowhawk plus Mind Screech in the flank might take it out. In the end, I opted to charge into Phantoms because I thought killing one unit is better than injuring one other. Ghouls managed to charge the Reapers in the forest. Reapers do have low nerf but still defense 4, and I'm hitting on 5 into the forest would be 6 attacks. Hitting on 6 with 10 attacks. So that's even less than 1 damage on average. Not sure if I dealt any damage, so let's see what happens in the next screen. After that bout of bad news from not getting the Dreadfiend and the Dreadfiend getting the Tortured Souls, I have a little bit of luck turnaround. I wavered Fiends. I'm not sure how much.
That was traumatizing. I don't remember much of this battle because it was 3 months ago, but seeing that waver brought all the trauma back. And I'm just like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm reliving this.
In hindsight, I'm not sure if you should have turned your Dreadfiend to get Bale instead.
Yeah, that's the...
But of course here, you get to eat up the Abyssal Horseman because I have to face both your Shadowhawk and Dreadfiend, which means I'm surely getting flanked by one of them. I think I dealt 1 damage to your Reapers because there is a metal die over there. Killed off your Soul Flayers after 2 turns of you raining, flying about. Abyssal Horseman that started all the way on the extreme left has made it behind the hill right now, behind the castle. Grounded Mind Screech in the middle over there. After killing the Soul Flayers, my Warlock overran forwards. And then what I should have done is to sidestep my other unit of Molochs that has just killed your Soul Flayers. Because I was so confident that I've blocked off your Butchers that I just left him there ready to charge your Butchers.
Yeah, I think you moved it as well, right? You were confident of your movement like at the start once you did the charging and whatever. Then you moved the Molochs out of position again.
Actually, I thought I have blocked your Butchers and Mind Screech in, and then when it went to your turn, your Mind Screech was facing downwards, right? And then you're like, even if you move straight forwards, right? I have that 6-inch sort of template over there. Even if you move straight forwards, right, you'll be here, and then your Butchers will not be able to move through this window. He also could have doubled forwards since he wasn't wavered. But you were like, okay, I can turn to the left, move 6-inch, and I go behind the Butchers, and I'm like, oh yes, you can do that. Yeah, so
this game is you can walk through your own guys. Yeah.
So that's exactly what you did. You walked through, you turned towards your Butchers and walked past them. 6-inch was enough to clear them, and then your Butchers were able to angle and charge and still make contact into my Molochs behind there. Over on the right side of the screen, the double charge killed off the Horseman at the fence. Because Fiends were wavered, you kind of bounced off 1 inch. The Reapers in the middle killed off Ghouls, which were already wounded, right? Looking at the green Warlock towards the lower left, I think he's probably got wavered by Lightning Bolt again. Your Horrors have Lightning Bolt as well, so...
Yeah,
which is the one with more Lightning Bolt?
I can't remember. I mean, if I were to guess, I'll say it's the King of Nothing model, the one that's behind the Planar Apparition. The Dreamer model, the Horror, I think also has Lightning Bolt 3, and then together with the Mind Screech, which will be 6, so I think still has like 9 enough damage to waver you again.
The Warlock is defense 4, 11, 13, but it does have regen 5, so sometimes if you only rely on small amounts of Lightning Bolt, it might take a while to kill him off. He might get wavered, but he's going to regen some. You need some time to take him off. Your Butchers still charge my Molochs. Planar Reparation move forward. Mindfog and wavered this Zazu over there. So on my turn, Abyssal Horseman has finally made it round the castle and is now staring at the Reapers. The Reapers killed off ghouls and faced backwards at the horsemen. My counter charge into the butchers, this is the interesting one. The Morlocks are 150 mil basing, so I'm wider than the butchers. So based on the position of my other Morlocks beside the castle, I couldn't double charge the butchers. So in order for me to flank your butchers with my further up unit of Morlocks, I have to back up the initial unit. And then I was like, it's already turn 5. I'm not sure if I still have time to make it past the center line because this is invade. I opted, which was not a great choice, I opted to just counter charge with 1 unit of Morlocks and hope that I roll high, because you also wavered my Zazuzu, which was very annoying because he could have been chanted. But because you wavered my Zazuzu, I'm hitting back on 3s and 3s, right? Your defense 5. Vicious Brutal, so I was hoping that, I roll a little bit high. Doesn't matter if I waver you because you have Fury. I made the wrong decision at this point, and when I passed the turn, I knew I made the wrong decision, and I was beating myself quite badly about it. I was like, in fact, I was a bit whiny. I was like, oh my god, why did I make this stupid decision? In hindsight, I should have just charged in with the flanking Moloch, and then I just repositioned to go diving past the center line again.
It's very difficult for one unit to take out another unit, like in a pound for pound situation. Usually you need 2 to 1 in order to take out a unit, especially something as heavy as the
butchers with the 18 nerf, right?
Right.
With
even my butchers, when they charge your Morlocks, they couldn't, and your Morlocks actually have a lower defense, and I still couldn't break them either.
Yeah.
So I think this game, it's kind of like balanced around. Like 1v1 is not going to do anything. 2v1 usually is enough. If you flank charge, it's basically double, right? So it would have been sufficient to take out the butchers. And
Morlocks though are quite the glass cannon, but I do have to comment, I do really love Morlocks as a hammer because they are crushing 2 hits on 3s, but also vicious brutal. So they have 2 offensive special rules, which if I'm wounding on 2s with vicious, it will mostly convert all the hits to wounds unless I roll 1 twice, and then plus that brutal, that extra 1 pip on the nerf roll. They do have a good chance, especially if I'm wounding on 2s, to one-shot a 17 or 18 nerf unit.
They
but
just need to be a little bit smaller now.
it's very understated how unwieldy their 150 mil basing is.
It's a significant difference,
And then with the Zazuzu waiver, I was like, no, I'll just pray for good dice, and then of course I should never do that. But good luck on the right side. I actually did, I would say, a wonderful maneuver. I flew 10 inches over your fiends, and then with nimble turn around twice, and then I lightning bolted at the Dread Fiend, who was wounded earlier in the game, right, with the double charge, and took it out. So that was great, because if I charge the Fiend, then your Shadowhawk would charge me, and then I'll just be pinned there. I flew out of...
This was the part of the game where things really kind of like went downhill over on the right side. Which was the side that I was banking on, so-called bring the victory for me. Okay, just mop up and then just quickly turn and then get themselves into a useful position. The waiver of the Fiends really put a dent in that plan. Now I have these two big guys, right, like a significant chunk of points that functionally can do nothing for the rest of the game. But all the while your build, still has capacity to fly and harass and to just cause general havoc.
So that's when that's the scary thing, when the flyers suddenly get free reign, right? When you no longer able to ground him and then he can just fly anywhere. It takes a lot of mental energy to be prepared for that. Oh, where will he land? And that's a bit difficult also when it's turn 5. Our mental energy is...
We're all pretty tired. I definitely mispositioned the Shadowhawk a little bit like that, because I did not expect you to just fly over. So the Shadowhawk could have been slightly better positioned. But
to face the entire side, right?
But at the same time, like speed 6, more frontage, there's only so much he could do, and I'm fairly certain if I positioned in another way, you could have found another angle to fly and do things slightly differently. Because there's nothing in the center now that threatens you anyway. So flying to the center also would give you the free reign needed. At that point, the trap was sprung, but the trap did not hold you down enough. Once you fly past, I knew that basically it was over. And then, of course, there's the horseman at the back. That was a problem that I knew was going to come and bite me in the ass much later. But I'm proud that I managed to keep it away for 5 turns, but I have to deal with it eventually, right?
I only killed Phantom so far, and then he spent 4 turns running around. Even that there's this Mind Screech beside my Bale, right? if it was positioned a little bit better, it might have been able to charge Bill in the flank. But of course, Mind Screech is not expected to do a lot of damage, even in the flank. Bill is defense 5. And I think I regenerated off all my wounds by then. I received one hindered charge from the Fiends, which hitting on 5s, crush 1 is not expected to do a lot of damage. So by this time, 2 turns, I have regenerated. Of course, with some lucky rolls, I've regenerated all the wounds off. So bottom of 5, the Butchers on the second charge killed off the Morlocks, which was like, this is exactly why I should have charged the Morlocks in the first place. Now my Morlocks have no choice but to charge in, right? Because I can't risk a lucky roll from your Butchers to kill off my Morlocks. The Reapers charged hindered into the Abyssal Horseman. Luckily, no spike rolls over there to kill it off.
Almost basically nothing,
Yeah, I think there are some wounds. Looks like a 6, but I can't be sure from the picture.
The amount of damage, it was quite negligible. Basically, it wasn't even close that the Horseman could have been ever taken out.
Horseman is only 14-16 nerf, but if you don't attack it with a significant amount of force, they'll just keep regenerating off. So that's the good thing about Horseman. This army also has tons of regen. Even the Morlocks have regen. That's the idea behind my list also. I just bring so much threat, right? As long as you start to lose steam, right, I start to regenerate. So that's the idea behind the list as well. Your Wavered Fiends now no more wavered, it repositioned. But I would say not at the best angle, because you turn your Shadowhawk around as well, and then you realize in the picture, if I charge the Fiends, your Shadowhawk couldn't see.
By this time I was quite tired and I major blunder on my end as well.
Luckily you didn't have to pay for that blunder because the game ended on turn 6. Because even if my build killed off the Fiends, if we recall, it's over 2 charges from build, so a total of 14 attacks, so of course need some lucky rolls there as well. And now your Shadowhawk couldn't charge, but it doesn't matter because the build is on my half of the board, so that means it doesn't score for the scenario. Yeah, so end of the turn, of course my Horseman killed off the Reapers, and so this is the end of the game. I have the Horseman 3 and the Zazuzu 1, 4 unit strength across the middle line, and for yourself you have 1, 2. That is the standard aberration as well as the Shadowhawk. And you could have 3, which is this Mind Screech, but you opted to put all your lightning bolts into it, because if you manage to pop the Abyssal Horseman, then you would win. Landing there would give it a clear shot. You have 1, 2, 3 lightning bolt sources. Are you able to see what's on that die? Let's see, I'll zoom in. 6. So there was a total of 6 damage.
Yeah, I think I did, not a lot either.
Yeah, you rolled very poorly at the very end. I'm at 4 wounds when I killed off the Reaper. So all your lightning bolt only dealt 2 wounds, which was...
I mean, at that point, it was a bit of a Hail Mary anyway. There was a lot of mistakes that accumulated to the point where, we reached this part of the game, and I was hoping for really like half a miracle at this point. If I had actually blasted them off the table, that would have been, I think, a traumatic experience for you, because that would have kind of like went against all of the odds. If I were to move the Mind Screech across your side of the board, I'll still only have 3 points. If I went to your side of the board, I still can shoot Horseman with lightning, but then they'll be in cover. I decided I'm going to lose anyway. I'm just going to give myself the best possible chance. And none of the lightning bolts were in cover. Just do my best to blast it off the map. Didn't happen.
Yeah, which was the correct play for sure.
Yeah.
Alright, I think the next is our post-game video.
Okay, so we are in the post-game, and it was quite a nail-biting battle because
really close.
I rolled quite poorly at the first half of the game and then very good on the second half of the game. And he did the exact opposite. He rolled very well in the first half of the game and then poorly in the second half of the game. I think we both made some tactical errors, which probably will be highlighted in the video.
It was a really tough game. Thank you, Paige, for having me on. I think mostly both of us did the right thing. It's just like minor things here and there that we could have tweaked. I think what was really clutch in this game was the Scorched Earth on the Fiends. That really hampered the charging of the Fiends and into Bale. Yeah, I think that was the most clutch one. All the rest, it kind of boils down to a bit of dice and luck. But yeah, good game. I really enjoyed myself.
Thank you.
Alright.
Anything that we can learn and take away from this game. So one of the key things you need to look out for is that blocking terrain really splits battlefields into different sections. Okay, in our case too. In the case of my Morlocks on Butchers, right, I'm like thinking back and forth. I should have just opted for the better kill rate. What I was hoping for is for above average dice, but if I didn't get it, there were dire consequences, because I knew that unit of Morlocks would die to a second charge, and I had to bring in that first unit that I was wondering whether to bring it in the first place, so I should have just done it earlier. For your side, John, anything you'd like to add on?
So I think my deployment I did mostly right. I just needed just a little bit something across on the other side, on the solo player side, just to balance it out a little bit more. Yeah, it was just too light on that side. And then of course the Scarecrow regiment, was just a silly mistake. I shouldn't have got myself in that position. I needed to understand and play to the scenario rather than play to your arm. I mean, I need to do both, but the scenario aspect of it was also very, very crucial. Yeah, I should have taken the first turn. I should have positioned myself so that I really zone you out of position rather than letting you take the initiative. And also, I just need to have better dice. Yeah.
That Scarecrow regiment was an unnecessary risk, right? You needed
correct.
Wind Blast 2, but you could have just kept the Scarecrow 1 inch back, and then you would only have needed Wind Blast 1, or maybe even 2 inch back, and you didn't even need the Wind Blast to be successful. Sometimes that, I'm most likely going to succeed, but if it doesn't, I'm going to lose a unit, so that's not a good trade.
And also towards the end, once your brain is tired and whatever, right, like the positioning of all your stuff when you reform whatever, it matters even more. So the Shadowhawk towards the end, turning it another 5 degrees off to the right of the screen would have allowed me to countercharge or protect the Fiends from your Bale. And having the Fiends are like 3 unit strength, right? So making you think twice about charging would have been important. I think you still take the charge because you needed to take this 3 unit strength off the table.
If not, I've lost. Yeah.
For me, even if I charge the Bale in, it's not going to make a difference at the end of the game anyway. It becomes very, very crucial, for me to be mindful of all of these errors.
Yeah, and
I'm still learning.
If there was turn 7, you would have a good chance of winning because you would continue to lightning bolt the horseman, which has nothing to charge if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, correct.
Morlocks, if I were to leg it past the center line, Planner Apparition would rear charge me. I was already at 10 wounds at that point.
So this is actually a rear charge, right? I'm actually rear charging you.
Yes, because I turned to face to run past the center line.
That's what you were planning to do, but then Planner really just try to lock you in.
Of course, if Shadowhawk charged Bale, and then you'll probably kill off Bale in 2 rounds of punches. If you had gotten the charge on turn 6 and then there was a turn 7, you would definitely have killed it. Okay, so I think that's all. Thank you for coming on, John. We are going to head off to the game store to get a game in right now. This has been a battle report that I've brought a guest on. Hope you have enjoyed this format. Definitely it's a little bit longer. Do like, subscribe, all that jazz, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.